Hey guys, this is Ryan from El Topo Loco. I wanted to go over some rules about counter timing rules. This game is pretty straightforward for the most part, but the one thing that really gets new players and even experienced players confused are when there are one counter window or two counter windows and how these actually work. So I wanted to go over how they generally work and then even some specific rulings about some counter um, timing rules. So this is how it's going to work. When I am playing a card from my hand, most people actually do it wrong. Um, this is how you're supposed to actually play cards. Most people do this as a kind of a shortcut and just like they're like, I play it, I tap it, is their response. That's not how it actually works. Technically, what you're supposed to be doing is it's in your hand. So if I'm playing this Raditz, I say, hey, I'm going to play this Raditz. Any response, they say, no response, then I play it. Or they might say, hey, I'm going to hit denial of hope. If they do denial of hope, this is how it happens. Denial of hope says it hits anything 20,000 or less, and it goes right to the drop. So it goes right from my hand to the drop area. I still have to pay the one energy, though, for it. Even though it doesn't actually get played, um, I still said I was going to play it. So now, if we look at denial of hope, it says counterplay, and then it has an effect. There are other kind of counterplays that have the counterplay timing, but they have auto effects. An example would be this Vegeta here. We see it says counterplay, and the only part to it says play this card. So that's just giving us a timing of how we can activate this. But the effect is actually an auto. So it's going to be a little bit different. If I happen to do that, let's just say I wanted to play this Raditz. I say, hey, I'm playing this card. Any response? And they say, yeah, I'm going to play this Vegeta over here. Well, in this case, the counter play is only telling us the timing of it. I can then play this card, and then the turn player's effect happens first. So since it's my turn, I get a draw from this card, and then the Vegeta goes off, killing it. Now, if I am hard casting a card or normal summoning it, however you want to think of it, just playing a card normally, there is only one counter window. There are not two counter windows. So you can only respond at that timing. There are cards that have two counter windows, and counter windows happen, or two counter windows happen when there's an effect playing a card. So an example of that would be World Peace. So if I paid 4 to play World Peace, excuse me, and let's just say this Raditz was in my drop, and I wanted to World Peace it. So I play World Peace, I ask for a response. Now, since World Peace is an effect that is playing cards, it gets two counter windows. The first counter window is before the card actually hits the field, and the second counter window is after it hits the field. So if I ask for a response here and they respond with something like Denial of Hope, well, Denial of Hope says it is never played. It's hitting the card before it actually hits the field. Um, they would have to do Denial of Hope blindly, meaning they don't know what target I'm going to pick. It could be this Raditz, it could be whatever else is in my drop, as long as it meets the requirements of World Peace. Now, if I chose something that was like a 3 cost for my drop that was more than 20,000 uh, cost, Denial of Hope was played during window 1 before I told them what card I was picking. So if I picked something that was higher than 20,000, well, Denial of Hope was just wasted. It does nothing because this specific effect. So counter window ones, if there's not a specified target or a certain card triggering it, they have to be done blindly. Now, let's just say, hey, I'm going to pick, okay, let's say I'm doing World Peace and I pay my energy and I ask for a response. They say no response, and I say, I'm going to play this Raditz. Well, now it's played on the field. They say, wait a minute, I want to play Denial of Hope. Well, guess what? Denial of Hope does absolutely nothing during window 2. The way this wording is in cards like Denial of Hope is it says when a card is being played. It says when your opponent is playing a card of 20,000 power or less. Well, guess what? this card is already played. It's already on the field. It's too late. It's not playing, it is played. So in this case, it would be played. I get the draw effect, and this would do absolutely nothing during window 2. Other effects, let's just say, okay, let's say I want to play this Victory Strike. Again, I reveal it while it's still in my hand and say, hey, I am triggering this effect. So in this case, there is no blindness to it because I have to reveal this card and say, hey, I'm playing this effect, this activate main. So if I'm paying 5 for it, I'm not sure if I said this already. We're just going to assume all the color energy is correct, and then I have the correct leader for all of these, just to make it very generic. In this case, I would have to pay 2 red and 3 blue. But let's just say I am playing this card for its effect. I have to reveal it in my hand first and say, hey, I'm activating the main effect. This does trigger 2 different counter windows because because the activate main is an effect playing a card. Now, the weird kind of interaction with this is Champa the Trickster over here. So I could actually do during window 1, say I'm using this counterplay, and this counterplay says play this card. So again, it's just the timing when this is played. The auto has an effect, and the auto is triggered because this is actually played on the field. So at this point, I can then play Victory Strike and resolve the rest of the effect. Now, this Victory Strike says that all battle card effects are basically useless at this point. You could basically only do extra cards. Now, the thing is, you'd think that would stop this Champa from resting it, but Champa was played before this whole effect actually went off. I just paid the energy and showed it. Champa's on the field, and his auto did trigger. So, turn player resolves their effect first, can't do any more battle effects. Champa still resolves its auto because it was triggered, and with one exception, really, any pending auto cannot be stopped. So in this case, this would still resolve, and this could actually tap this Victory Strike, even though it is a battle card. So that's one kind of weird interaction there. Let's see what else. Let's say I activated this, and they wanted to play Champa. I really don't want them to tap it out. If I have the energy, let's just say I had 2 energy open, I could actually do Denial of Hope on their counterplay. So, because this is a battle card being played, I could counterplay their counterplay in this case. And Champa never actually hit the field, so his auto never went off. And it would not tap my Victory Strike. Okay, let's go to Obuni because this has a lot of interesting interactions. Obuni itself has Deflect. Now, Deflect means it cannot be affected by counterplay cards or the effects of counterplay cards. So, Denial of Hope would not do anything to this. Even though it does have 20,000 power, Denial of Hope would do absolutely nothing. Crusher Ball would do nothing. But cards that have auto effects can do something. So, actually, this Frieza is actually a bad example. Let's just say I did this Vegeta. I could, when they play Obuni, and Obuni only has 1 counter timing for this card itself because it's being played normally. If I tap 4 for this, I say any response, and they say, I'm going to play this Vegeta. He gets played. His auto is triggered but not resolved yet. Well, his auto is triggered and needs to resolve first because the turn player always activates their autos before the non-turn player. So now his auto says, I get to play 3 after image tokens. Now, the tokens are technically battle cards, and they're being played via an effect. So Obuni only has 1 counter timing, but the tokens have 2 counter timings. So during window 1, I could say no response to Obuni, and they say I'm going to use the auto for the tokens. I can even play the Vegeta then. Or if I wanted to, I'm saying any response to the Obuni, they say no. Any response to the tokens, I say no. And then they play the tokens. Now the tokens are in play. I could even do the Vegeta now. on the second counter window for the tokens. Now, Vegeta is actually really good against Obuni because, and again, it didn't matter which counter timing I used it on for this specific card. But the auto says I'm going to minus 20,000 to all of their cards. Now, Obuni says this card cannot be KO'd, but being brought to 0 power is not KOing it, and it would die from game mechanics. So this would not, even though the permanent is here saying these after image tokens would save it, in this case, Vegeta would kill all of them because it would make all of them have 0 power. So there are some rare occasions where counterplays can hit deflect cards. The reason why I said this was a bad example with the Frieza over here is because, yes, I could activate this on the Obuni effect or the Obuni being played or even the tokens being played, but this Frieza would do absolutely nothing because, not because Obuni has deflect, but because his auto says, or sorry, his permanent says he can't be KO'd, and this Frieza does KO a guy of 7 or less. Now, his permanent basically is saving him because these tokens are out on the field. If I do this, if I play this Frieza before the tokens are coming out, it doesn't matter because, again, auto timing happens for the turn player first. So this auto would make these get played first, and then Frieza would resolve, and Frieza can't KO this anymore. And he can't choose the targets, he can't choose the tokens as a target either because it says 7 or less. Now, these tokens, they don't have 0 power, they have no cost at all. So if it has a specified number for a cost, you can't hit tokens. So this Frieza would do absolutely nothing other than being played. So if I want to Crusher Ball before the tokens are out in the field, I can't Crusher Ball the Obuni because he has Deflect. But counter window 1 for the tokens, I could say, hey, I'm going to activate Crusher Ball for the tokens themselves. Now, Crusher Ball says battle cards being played are played in rest mode. So Crusher Ball, just like Denial of Hope, does not work on a window 2 because it's happening before they're being played. If I do this on window 1 for the tokens, it would hit not just one token, it would hit all 3 tokens because they're all being played in the same counter window. Now, technically, they are played one at a time, but they're all being played in the same window itself, so it will hit all 3 of those tokens. A card that would not hit all 3 of these tokens would be Gallic Cannon. Gallic Cannon is kind of an exception to this because whenever a counterplay is used when multiple cards are being played during window 1, it would affect all of them. But this one specifically says choose up to one of those battle cards. So because it gives a number up to one of them, it has to only choose one of the tokens. So I would just choose this one, and the other 2 would come in. This is not the best counterplay card because this has to be played during window 1. It does not hit deflect cards like most counterplays, and it does not affect cards with barrier because you are choosing something. So this has a lot of things working against it. So that's why Gallic Cannon is not necessarily the most played card. Let's say I am playing. Let's say I'm playing that Raditz again. Where'd he go? If I'm playing this Raditz from my hand, again, I reveal him first. I ask for any response. And let's just say I'm going to play him, and they say I'm going to respond with this Trunks. Now, this Trunks is like Denial of Hope. It only works on window 1 because it affects the card being played. So this will go right back to my hand. I don't get a draw, but I still have to tap the 1. And then this would go to the drop because I'm using the counter play to stop it from being played. I could always play this again afterwards, and I would end up paying 2 just to draw 1 in this case. But that's how this works. It has to be during window 1. This Vegeta here is very similar to Crusher Ball. It can affect more than one card being played on a counter window 1 effect, but it won't do anything on counter window 2. Well, I guess you could play him on counter window 2 if you just want the blocker, but it's not going to rest anything. Frieza, the counter play effect can actually, it's just really just the timing. It can actually hit something with deflect because it's the auto doing the effect. Yamcha is really controversial just because a lot of people don't understand the counterplay timing rules. So again, if I'm playing this guy, this Raditz from my hand, there's only one counter timing. So there's no two. I'm just playing him normally. If I want to respond with Yamcha, I say, yes, I want to play Yamcha in response to your Raditz being played. This says choose 2 of your opponent's battle cards, basically 2 cards on their field, and minus 15. Well, this gets resolved right away because it's not auto timing, it's a counterplay timing, and that happens right away. Well, guess what? You can't hit my Raditz. It's still in my hand. So then what would happen is I would then play this, tap my 1 energy for it. Raditz is on the field. I get the draw effect, and Yamcha can't minus it at this point. Now, if I'm playing something that has 2 counter windows, let's just say I'm playing Obuni. Well, this has deflect. It won't be affected by Yamcha, but let's just say his auto's going off, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm going to respond to window 1. Well, window 1, this would happen before the tokens are played, and again, Obuni has deflect, so it's not affected, so it does nothing really. You just get a free 15k on the field. But Obuni, let's just say in this situation, says, hey, I'm going to activate the auto. Any response? You say no response. You play the 3 tokens. After they are played, say window 2. So the counter window is after they are played. They are on the field, and then you play Yamcha. Well, Yamcha says pick 2 of their guys, minus 15. Now I could choose 2 of these because they are played on the field. But when you play this card's effect will still go off. So if, I don't know, if you played something and it happened to play this Raditz, I would still get the draw effect. But Yamcha could only hit the guys being played on a window 2, never on a window 1. If I play this during window 1, and let's just say this is already out. If Obuni's already out with the tokens and I want to play this Raditz, any response, they say yes, Yamcha, because there's only one window. This Yamcha can hit these 2 tokens because they are already on the field, but it won't hit this Raditz in my hand. I could then play this Raditz, tap for it, draw. It would hit the cards already in play. Let's see, what else is there? Focus Breakthrough would not work on the tokens because the tokens have no cost, and this says a cost of 3 or less. So it could hit something like the Raditz and prevent you from drawing, but it cannot hit the tokens because they have no cost. This Focus Breakthrough also could hit something like Topo. Now this says energy cost of 3 or less it will hit. Well, Topo looks like it has a cost of 4, but it's permanent. It says during my opponent's turn, reduce it by 2 in my hand. Now, Focus Breakthrough only works during window 1, just like Denial of Hope and Crusher Ball. Well, in window 1, this card's still in my hand. It's a 2 cost in my hand because Topo's minute. So even though this is 3 or less, Topo is technically a 2 cost. And if I want to negate, the negate part would still go off, but it goes right to the drop. And that auto effect of saying my opponent has to discard 2 every time they attack does not happen because it was never played. This stopped it from being played. And again, it was reduced in the hand, so that's why it works. This Hidden Power of the Saiyans ruling has a really weird interaction with Obuni. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you could actually do this on Obuni even though it has Deflect because it's not affecting the Obuni, it's affecting the player. So basically it says if the leader is green, your opponent may place the battle card they're playing in its owner's drop. So it's giving them a choice of whether or not they want to play it. So they could actually put Obuni to the drop if they want. Actually, no, they can't. I'm sorry. Let me take that back. They can't put Obuni in the drop because of Deflect. So they're being forced to choose the two cards in their hand, put them into the drop. Um, so this is kind of a weird interaction. So deflect cards, you're basically forcing them to drop two. A better interaction would actually to use this on the tokens. So why is it better to use it on the tokens? Because it says instead, and again, we have to use this on counter window 1 of the tokens, not counter window 2 because they're being played, not when they're played. If I do this on the tokens, you're forcing your opponent to drop 6 cards from their hand. Well, why are they forced to? It says your opponent can either place the cards into their drop, and or they could play the card and discard 2. Well, the thing with tokens is they are never placed in the drop. So like Belmonts, where you have to like kill 3 guys, send them to the drop, and you can play them for free. You can't do it on tokens because tokens are never sent to the drop. So with this effect, you can't place these 3 tokens into the drop. So you're actually forced to discard 6 cards. Let's see, what else is a little weird? Counter timing with. Let's get the topo back. Counter timing with. Let's go with the Yamcha. Let's just say I'm hard casting. Or no, let's say I am playing the tokens again, because that gives us 2 windows. Any response to my auto? Yes, I am going to respond to your auto's effect during window 1. I could play this Vegeta. Well, okay, they say, okay, well, my auto still goes off. Your auto didn't happen yet, because Vegeta's effect is an auto, not the counterplay. I play these 3. Well, guess what? It's counter window 2. I could still play another card during counter window 2 and respond to this. If I want to play Yamcha after this, I could. I mean, it's kind of a waste, it seems like, unless they have a bigger field, because Vegeta is going to kill everything. But I could respond both during counter window 1 and during counter window 2 with counterplays. In this case, I ended up playing 2 bodies, so you can do that. Other weird timings. Let's see. Topo. If I'm negating with Topo and they did denial of hope. Well, this is what happens. I say, I'm negating, I paid my 2, I'm playing Topo, they said denial of hope. This never hit the field. This goes right to the drop. I tried to play it, so I have to discard another card. Well, Topo never hit the field. It does not make your opponent discard 2 for every attack. Now, if I say I'm playing Topo and in response and they don't respond to it, actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm playing Topo for 2. Any response? Well, let's just say they play this cooler instead. You could denial of hope this cooler, but the counter effect still goes off. So it doesn't. It's not going to denial of hope would not stop cooler's counter from going off. But if I counter Topo, this is where a lot of people get this wrong. Topo, if you notice with this counter effect and counter attack, there's no colon after that. So the discard is not a cost. So if they cooler my Topo, I've never even had a chance to even play the card. This will go to the drop, and I do not have to discard for Topo if they counter it. If they counter play it, yes, you do discard. If they counter it, you do not discard. Also, in that effect, it would stop the negate, so the attack still goes through, and they do not have to discard because he was never played. One last thing I want to go over is Fu Shrouded in Mystery. If I play Fu and they respond with, let's get rid of these cards to clear it up. So Fu is being played with Overwhelm. I would have to tap 6, and I'm playing Overwhelm, so I'd have to warp my 10. Well, this is being played with an effect, so Fu does have 2 counter windows. Whether I use Champa during window 1 or window 2 doesn't actually matter, because Fu, if you remember earlier, I said pretty much you can never stop a pending auto. Now, Foo's kind of worded differently where it doesn't stop a pending auto, it just says you can't activate cards. So even if an auto is triggered and pending, you can't resolve it. So if they respond with Champa, this is what happens. Foo's auto goes off before Champa, and Foo says your opponent cannot uh, activate skills other than their leader skill for the turn, or actually for 2 turns, basically your turn and their turn. So this auto's triggered, this auto's triggered. I'm the turn player. This auto goes off first. Well, they're trying to activate their effect to resolve it. Can't happen. Foo stops it. So Foo would not be rested. What would stop Foo is Crusher Ball. And Crusher Ball, again, only works on window 1. So say, hey, I'm going to play Foo Shroud and Mystery on window 1. They say Crusher Ball. This would tap it. If they say Crusher Ball on window 2, it's too late. Foo's already on the field. Does nothing. One more thing with Foo. If I wanted to play Yamcha in response to Foo, and if Foo's the only card on the field, window 1, again, with Yamcha, does nothing because Foo's still in my hand when I activated his effect. Any response during window 1 from my Foo, they say Yamcha. Well, guess what? Can't subtract anything from Foo because he's in my hand. Well, let's just say I'm going to instead ask for a response during window 1. They say no response. I play Foo. Say window 2, I respond with Yamcha. Well, Yamcha's effect is not an auto, so it's a counter play. So Foo's on the field during window 2. Yamcha can minus 15, and this goes off before Foo's auto can actually go off. So because of that happens, Yamcha can make this into a 15k double strike, and it's a lot more easily. It's a lot easier to manage a 15k double strike than it is a 30k double strike. So maybe they can't go in for game anymore. All right, so those are basically a lot of the interactions with counterplays. Hopefully that summed it up for you guys, cleared some things up. If I missed anything or misspoke about anything, feel free to leave a comment. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Please like and subscribe. Have a good one, guys.